Ladies and gentlemen, if you have held on to your subscription to this channel long enough to get to this results video, I applaud you. Anyway, this is about the Trailblazer SS intake versus the regular style Gen 3 intake, and we have all heard there are gains, and I know there are people that I trust that have done this swap and they have picked up, but I wanted to quantify that with this. The theme of this whole setup is what's worth it, and I wanted to know how worth it is this swap. And it was very easy to swap this intake, and I did a crap job on just hooking up my stock throttle to it, and I want to make a support for that bracket so it doesn't rotate. I can show you what I mean. It's a single bolt, and if you keep stepping on the throttle, gradually it's going to twist, and then the linkage is going to bind, and that's going to make your throttle hang and or just make the pedal feel like shit, or you're going to ruin something. Anyway, let's talk about the results. We did a bunch of hits on medium and schmedium and low boost levels, and at low boost it appears I picked up almost 40 rear wheel, and I did a partial hit because the truck normally quits around 6100 RPM. And with this intake, it actually peaks out at 6,600. So I would like to do a low boost pull one more time with that guy and see if it makes, it made 445 on 5 pounds of boost. And prior to that, it made just over 400. So it picked up an easy 25 if you want to be conservative, and 40 rear wheel, you know, if you want to go to the extreme. But it was, I mean, 20 horsepower to the tire if you can get that intake for $100 and then bolt the throttle body on. If you're trying to maximize what you got and you're already done and everything anyway, I have to totally recommend it. It definitely worked. So what we're going to do is I'll show the dyno pull for low boost, and then we'll go over the log, and I'll show you the dyno pulls. And what's really neat also is prior it took about 19-20 pounds of boost to make 620 to the tire. Now it only takes 16 pounds. So it's definitely making more power per pound and making more power on lower boost. So all of the good things have added up so far with this intake, and I quit the test once it made 634 to the tire, because I know my converter struggles over that and the gains start to go away, and it's not an accurate representation of what's actually happening. It's more or less exploiting the inadequacy of my torque converter at that power level instead of proving a result. So now I like to quit around the 600 tire mark with the result, but I like to move around the cabin with the boost and see what the gains are. So anyway, quick refresher on that. We'll cut to low boost dyno pulls. Let's look at the log first, and you can hear it misfiring if you got good ears, or you know that it's a misfire. It actually, because I had not changed the tune-up, I drove it to the dyno. I just put the intake on the other day and drove it to the dyno yesterday, and I didn't make any tuning changes. So at part throttle, you know, it was fairly lean at like cruise here right before I rolled into it, and you can see. Yeah, let's highlight over here. Ready for this? Blah, production value, increase, level up. Anyway, I roll into it here, and you can see about 138 kPa. And let's let me tell you guys what that is real quick. Check out this Sloppy Mechanics utility I wrote I'm a madman. 138, 5.5 psi average. You can see it, made 5.5 pounds, 20 degrees, and we had 62% alcohol in here. And I did lift at about 6,500, but it looked like it wanted to make a little bit more. You can see here my throttle actually hung up. I was talking about it binding. It did, but it bound a little bit. It wouldn't go below 30. So it didn't hang open, but it, it did hang open a little bit. What actually happened was the cone slipped down. Anyway, that was 5 pounds, and I have an apples to apples pull of that right here. In the blue, this is 5 pounds with the stock intake with the ported heads. And then in the red here, this is 5 pounds of boost, same timing, same air fuel, and this is with the Trailblazer intake and the China throttle body. So you can see it gained everywhere pretty much, which is awesome. And it looks like it would have peaked out, like I was saying, it would have made approximately 450. So it definitely picked up about 40 rear wheel just on 5 pounds of boost. So super happy with that. Everything else looked great. You want to laugh at the duty cycle here, 24%. A lot of people question the air fuel thing. You can see it's flat. That's not my air fuel. That's just, nothing's hooked up. So it's just saying that. I should probably just eliminate that figure so people don't concentrate on it. But as you can see, the injectors aren't even trying. Truck made, we would have made 450, I'm sure of it, on low boost. Incredible result there. So we'll go to the next boost amount, and we'll talk about the log and the dyno pull and try to give you an apples to apples comparison and continue on. Okay, coming up here is a 13 psi pull, and I've muted the dyno pull volume a little bit to not blow out devices. I know how that feels. So here comes 13 pounds, and we'll talk about it afterwards. Same thing. Here is the post-pull play-by-play, and I have the data log here, and you can see boost comes up and in, and we're averaging in the 190, 195 kPa area, so 13-ish pounds, and this produced 575 horsepower to the tire. And unfortunately, I don't have a good pull on lower boost with the ported heads. I went right for broke, 18, 19 area. But the best thing that I do have to compare to that was a pull that made 540 on like 19, 18 pounds. So it makes over that on many pounds less. So that's just a good comparison. But yeah, you could see 13 pounds and 19 degrees, duty cycle still in the 33%. Awesome. This was with a like 1150 air fuel. I marked here. That's what I saw on my wideband. So happy with that. Incredible. 575 on 13 pounds, almost 600 plus to the tire on, 1 bar. So at this point, if you do the math, the turbo is making conservatively 18 horsepower per pound. Everything's doing incredible. So we'll hit it with a little bit more, and when we crack 600 is when we quit because the converter struggles after that. And here is a 16-pound pull, and just to get that 600 plus horsepower result and check the comparison. So I'll turn the volume down a little bit on the motor on this one too, and then we'll again do the post-pull playback. right, going over the facts. We have the pull from that 16-pound hit. And here's the funny thing. You can see on my dyno pull, that's why it dips up top. Every now and then, I get some knock. I don't know if my knock sensors are getting old. I'll be cruising and it'll get knock every now and then. So it's one of those things. On the P59, it happens more. This is with the P01. I go back and forth with them to mess around, but this is knock, but it certainly didn't knock. It was totally fine. Anyway, I know people are going to point that out, so, you know, we can talk about it, but it wasn't pinging. It was fine. So we roll into it here, and we're making, it actually pinned my map sensor because it's a 2-bar OS, but it was right around 16 pounds. Just take my word for it. I won't lie to you. And what's neat is at about only 36% duty cycle, it made 634 to the tire. Now, obviously it nosed once it pulled some timing out of it. So this was 16 pounds, 14 degrees when it made 630. And then when the knock retard, you know, kicked the power down a little bit. But a neat comparison for this for you is, this is 2 dyno pulls. And this was with the stock intake is right here on 19 pounds of boost. And this is with the Trailblazer SS intake on 16 pounds. So it's making more again on less boost. So again, that's the stock intake with 19 pounds, Trailblazer SS intake with 16 pounds. And you can see where it nosed hard here. Normally this intake was carrying power pretty well up top over this. So this nose here is just the stupid knock retard turning on. It might have even gone a little bit more, but it was, I think it was pretty much done when it kicked on. So, you know, we gave it the benefit of the doubt. So it's doing incredible there. So I did make one more pull. I lowered the boost to about 9 pounds, and I forgot to record that, so I don't have the video, but it made 500 tire on 9 pounds. It's doing incredible. It's obviously a very good modification, in my opinion, if, you know, you have the time and whatever to put it on, because the fuel rails for this intake are returnless. So you have to have provisions for that. And that's why I wanted to do the twin pumps and put the regulator on, so I could just drop the intake on and connect it. I already had the regulator in place. I didn't have to worry about scrambling to connect the regulator for this returnless intake. So awesome results there, guys. I don't really know what else there is to go over, unless my setup was capable of more power, but it's definitely a really good percentage gain in my eyes. People make all sorts of jokes about dyno jets reading really high, but in my area, the dyno jet is pretty stingy. Troy's dyno jet, the one that I use, has turned out to be fairly stingy. So take it for what it is. It's a good gain, definitely. So there is a reason why people do it, but don't kill yourself to put the damn thing on, obviously. One more thing that I wanted to go over was I purposely laid out a bunch of these pulls here so we can take a look at them objectively. And we have here, this is 5 pounds with the Trailblazer SS intake versus the stock intake on an RPM pull. And now this is why we talked about this in the other video. I have another video where people always ask, why is it always a mile an hour? And with a converter car, like my converter on low boost here comes up past 4,500. So from this point on is the good result. And then the more power you apply to a big auto stalled car, the more this gets skewed. It just looks like trash. It looks like nothing's happening. So this is an RPM chart, and you can clearly see that Trailblazer intake loving the higher RPM, whereas, you know, this cam and that intake, the sloppy stage 2 and the regular Gen 3 intake usually peak out in the low 6s or 6,000 flat. And the Trailblazer intake really wants to go. It looks like, from my logs and from the other pulls, it looks like 6,600 is where it makes peak with that combination. And then what we have here is the mile an hour chart. Now you can see the more work being done, but this is also on 5 PSI, just so you can get a good look at that. And then here, this is 16 pounds stock intake versus another one of my closer pulls, and it picks up at least 20 rear wheel there. But like I was saying, that it's not a total apples to apples comparison with those. So take that one for what it's worth, but obviously it's making more. And then here it is again. This is the RPM chart. Like I was saying, you can see the sloppy stage 2 cam and stock intake quitting at about 6,000 mark, and the Trailblazer intake wants a little bit more. It's doing really good up top. And then here is a neat comparison highlighting the 4 pulls that I made yesterday at 5 pounds, 9 pounds, 13 pounds, and 16 pounds. So you can see here, it carried beautifully on 13, and then my issue here again was that stupid knock retard came out of nowhere and biffed my, my 630 pull, but it might have closed in on 650 up top because, like I said, that thing likes to eat up top, but it was already pushing my converter anyway. So really neat comparison here. You can see, this coming up on motor and everything really smooth with the power, and then you can see the converter getting hit kind of hard, but it's neat to see this cheap economical build. The results it keeps producing surprise me more every day, even though I've done obviously a lot of this. But it's always cool to see this was just like a cheaper complete 02 4.8 and 200,000 miles, and everyone has seen me install the camshaft dry, and I tell you, you don't need to scrutinize over certain things and kill yourself, and I hope that some of you take a lot from this. With recent posts on the sloppy page, it seems like some people have really taken it and run with it. Other people obviously are struggling, but I don't know if those people will always struggle. So, take it as it is. So there's a really neat comparison between 5 and 16 pounds. And obviously if I had a little bit better converter, but that's a large price leap. That's something to consider. That's at least $1,000 to get into a good converter. And then the issue there is, will this bottom end take that kind of stress from the converter and the weight of the car is a whole other subject. So while you're all looking for reliable power, that's the kind of result I can produce. You putting in a stronger torque converter may hurt the motor. So you have to weigh your options, obviously, but incredibly, this is the project that keeps on giving. So again, answer, if you guys have relevant questions, we can try to answer them below. Go ahead and type them up. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this test. What I would like to try next is seeing what kind of increase does the 4-bolt throttle body give you. Obviously, I have a 92 millimeter on there. I wanted to see because I figured most people, if they were buying this intake, they would go right to the throttle body also, just wanting to do that. I know they sell an adapter that goes from the 4-bolt to the stock 3-bolt. Someone said they're going to send me one, so I'm going to see if that shows up, and we'll bolt the stock 3-bolt throttle body right back on and see if there's a median thing here, or if just the intake makes the power, or if you need the intake and the larger throttle body to get those 20, 30, 40 rear wheel results. So that's next on the plate. And also a neat development, I have another guy who wants to send me middle of the road injectors. He's going to be selling cheaper 150 pounders. He's selling 1000s, 1300s, and 1500s. I'll get more of the facts when I make that video. I also got a setback from Eric Durr, so I should just make an entire injector video. But I want to go over, I had the decapped 25 pounders and they end up flowing 70-ish, and then I just decapped a set of flexors and they flow 80-ish. I was out of injector in the 550 range with the 70-ish pound injectors. So if your goal is to hit this 600 mark without spending a ton on injectors, we're going to see if the 88 pound decapped flexors will cover that. If they don't, then we're going to see how this guy's cheaper 100 to 150 pound injector performs. So I'm very curious to see those results also. So that's what's coming up as far as what's going to get tested on the truck the next couple videos. So let me know what you think of that. Ideas, if you think it's total horse shit, go ahead, let me know. Thanks, bye.